So welcome to the panel. I'm pretty excited. We have an all-star panelist. So I'm going to make a brief introduction, and then they will tell a little bit about themselves and the companies first, and then we'll go into the questions. So the first, Howard Wright, VP Startup Ecosystem NVIDIA, all the way far, far away from Bay Area.
Good morning, everybody. Howard Wright for startups at Nvidia. Our job is to captivate the hearts and minds of the most important startups and the most important VCs in the world and get them up and building on Nvidia platforms and products. When Faisal asked me some time ago, it was a very easy yes to come back and see some familiar friends. I worked at Qualcomm for 14 years. I see Quinn up there. I see Erica and others. And then my brother and I literally grew up across the street, across Highway 8 here in San Diego in Del Cerro. So I'm a California boy through and through. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. And maybe like for one person who's living in a cave who doesn't know what NVIDIA does, so if you can maybe.
We're known for GPUs, so not dissimilar, Nakul, to our days back at Qualcomm. People, I think, make a slight nuanced mistake and say, oh, that is a GPU or that is a modem company. No, it's a platform company. We have GPUs and CPUs and connectivity. Now we have Mellanox and the CUDA libraries. So think of it as a platform company that is part of the networking equipment for all of the Gen AI that we're all sitting here all eager to talk about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We are very glad to have you. Next, we have Philip Bechtold, CEO of Enclustra, all the way from Zurich. So give it a hand, hand of applause for coming from all the way. So maybe a little bit about yourself and then about Enclustra.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, so I'm Philip. I'm CEO of Enclustra, a company that prides itself on shaping the future through innovation. We're a hardware company that provides services to our customers in terms of taking away the pain of designing the hardware and thus being able to focus on what their idea is, on how they want to bring products to the market that are changing the lives of their customers. It's a very rewarding piece of work that we're doing there, because at the end of the day, it is really making sure that the best of both worlds are coming together. We have heard in the panel, in the discussion that you had just a couple of minutes ago, how incredibly complex everything is, how incredibly complex all those systems and products are that make these visions a reality. And what we saw is that if you can provide a service that takes away just one part of the whole product life cycle, in our case, getting the whole hardware designed and manufactured, this really helps the customers to accelerate their time to market and, as I said, make their customers happy.
Thank you. Yeah. And next we have Samir Wassan. I think he's the CEO of MIPS. He was part of it, TechCon 2024. Welcome him back, and maybe Samir, a little about yourself and MIPS.
Sure. First of all, Faisal, thank you for having me back. This is my second time here. I don't have those deep roots with San Diego, but I love coming to the place, especially long weekend San Diego. My wife wasn't very happy with the idea, so MIPS is we are focused on what we like to call driving intelligence into action. I think people in caves also know what Nvidia is doing, and honestly, the work which Qualcomm is doing. So I'm very happy to be part of this discussion. Bottom line is, I think we've all seen what AI on the data center is able to do with productivity and how it goes. I think what we are focused on is, as that movement moves to the edge, and as it moves into more day-to-day devices, how do we build technology and software and processes which are focused on making that more power efficient and scalable?
Wonderful.
So I think that's the mission we're on.
Yeah, we're going to have a deeper discussion with all of you on that. And last but not least, Nakul Duggal, all the way from Qualcomm. So Nakul, maybe a little bit about yourself and then Qualcomm.
Thank you for having me, and great to be on a panel where I know two of the people here, and nice to meet you. I was thinking about being on a panel with Howard Wright, and one tidbit. Howard was one of the guys that started automotive back, I think, in 2008, 2009, maybe even before that. So
Thank you. I was going to give myself credit for that later, but since you did it.
But we don't forget our friends. No, I think Qualcomm's San Diego company, very proud San Diego company, been founded by Dr. Jacobs and Dr. Viterbi in '85, and they are obviously industry pioneers. The company's evolved. It's been a global company. It's been a fantastic journey. I've been with the company for 30 years, and I think the best way to describe it is we are still a startup. We are still, we consider ourselves the underdog, even though we are a pretty large company, and we love to push the envelope on changing the company in terms of finding new set points where the industry is headed. So I've had the privilege of working on two brand new markets in the last 10 years, things that are have been foreign to us, things that have not been core to us, and we found a way to actually become very familiar with them, make a shift. And really that's what it's about. How do you actually understand technology and take your company, take the teams, take the products in that direction?
Thank you, and then let's get started. So, semiconductor. I've been in the industry just like you for 30 years. Used to be like, semiconductor. And now I think in the last 10 years, I feel it's bringing sexy back. I mean, semiconductor is becoming so how do you see the advancement in the last 10 years, and how do you see the impact AI, connectivity, IoT? And it's an open question for all four of you, like, where we are in the last, like at least a decade, and then looking forward, looks like semiconductor is the hottest thing around these days. So maybe starting with Nakul and then come in this direction.
Yeah, I think maybe I'll give you two bookends. If you think about smartphones, the pace of change in smartphones in terms of semiconductor adoption has been the fastest because it's a consumer product. And so there is a reason for the ecosystem to drive to the next product that companies want to sell to you. Apple wants to sell you a new product. Google wants you to get to the next technology. So that's the treadmill that we are all very used to. And when you are on that treadmill, because there are so many technologies that go into products like a smartphone, the technology ecosystems that are sitting behind that semiconductor product also have to evolve. And so that's been the journey, I would say, over the last 20 years for pretty much every product company. Because we've been a smartphone company, we've been on that very faster treadmill. If you're associated with industries that are slower moving because you can't afford to have such a faster product cycle, then you connect to that cadence at a slower level. Now, I think the other major shift that has happened in the last 5-7 years is data center, which is a brand new change in what is the meaning of an enterprise and its data. What is the meaning of data on the internet in the face of AI changing everything? And so a very similar shift in terms of semiconductor power driving that shift is happening in the data center. Everything else in the middle is a recipient, is a beneficiary of these technology changes that are happening. And it's trying to connect to a new cadence of change. And that's really, I think, the best way to go describe it. Because it is something that touches every single product that we use today, because why would every product not want to be intelligent? That's why we are all here, because we're trying to figure out how to take advantage.
Wonderful. Thank you. Samir, your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, Nakul covered it very nicely. I'll just add my perspective. So I think in the past 30 years, I've not been in the industry for 30, but 2/3 of that. See, if you just take smartphones example, which Nakul gave, right? The smartphone happened, and then the App Store happened. And it sort of exploded the required capability on the smartphone. With AI as a horizontal technology, I think, at least in my career, for the change, software and application is far ahead of hardware. So if you look at the lack of optimized hardware around to run most workloads on AI, that is the reason why semiconductors is sexy again, because I think everyone, one way or the other, is getting to the same saying, ChatGPT is here, but I wish there was a better platform which could run ChatGPT and sit next to me and be my assistant. Hardware, with all due respect, I'm part of the problem, doesn't exist today for that. I think we're working our way there, but honestly, for the first time ever, applications are ahead of hardware. So let's invest, let's catch up and make something good, right? So I think that's why it's an exciting time.
Makes sense, yeah. And maybe Philip, your perspective.
Well, I basically concur with what he just said, because at the end of the day, that's where we are really active in. And yes, the computing power that is required to make all the, or to get the best out of all those ideas that are coming out of those new technologies is still not here yet. And if it is here yet, it's most likely going to be too big, too power consuming, or too bulky. And on the other hand, for smaller players in the market, it's also financially not going to be available, or you just don't have all the necessary resources to actually deploy this technology. And that's where I think companies like ours are really bringing a benefit to the game, because we actually focus only on that part of it. And if you build up an ecosystem that has this segmentation a bit and make sure that the different players are collaborating together, I think that acceleration that you have seen in the software in the past couple of years can now be transformed into the hardware development, and make sure that both worlds, hardware as well as software, are being used to their maximal potential.
I try to put maybe an exclamation point on something that Nakul said, which is the interconnectivity of everything now. 10 years ago, we were all on process node technology. Who's going to be the fastest to 14 nanometer or 10 or 7 and 3? That game has pretty much been decided. Looking forward, the use of the power created by the AI factories now with hardware and software. So we daydream at Nvidia about Agentic AI, which Nakul had up in his slides for sure. We talk about robotics and some of the things that we announced at CES, Cosmo, and Omniverse. And then me personally, as this gets into healthcare and life science, I think there could possibly be some cures for some of these insidious diseases that have plagued all of us. And that will be found not in a petri dish, but it'll be solved in a data center. So the idea that we can collectively contribute the ecosystem, not just us on the dais here, can contribute our passions, our talents, our company's balance sheets towards this is a fantastic. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be in this space with the ecosystem that we have.
Wonderful. So is it safe to say that if you look at our future, power is Achilles' heel? Like power would be the one that can make or break? Like if the way we are going, like next 20, 30 years, is it not the nanometer, like 4 nanometer or 3 nanometer? Is it the power consumption will be the factor, or you think we have solved that puzzle?
Well, I think the constraint of power is tied to the type of device that you are talking about, obviously. But maybe one way to think about it is what is hybrid AI? What is running where? So, for example, if I have a watch, I know that it's a power constrained device, but I want to push the envelope in terms of if I go running, what kind of AI can I manage on the watch? When that watch needs to get access to something that it doesn't have access to, where does that happen? If I have a car, I don't really have any constraints on power. I probably have a constraint on cost. So, what is the next constraint that you get to? And I think it's a combination of what you need to get access to provide the experience. For example, if I'm trying to program, I'm probably trying to program with the latest and greatest information that is sitting in a data center somewhere, because that is where the latest. It doesn't make sense to bring it closer. If I'm shopping at Target and the stock that exists in the store is local information, how do I go architect it? So to me, the constraints don't necessarily have to be thought about in the context of the semiconductor. They have to be thought about in the context of the economics of the problem statement you're trying to solve. And then it goes to wherever the constraint is going to be: power, cost, architecture.
Wonderful. So I think how I'll now have focused questions on Harvard, like Nvidia, forefront of AI innovation. So how do you think that the how do you see the innovation and the advancements to continue to meet the demands of AI? Like looking forward, like where we stand right now with what's coming our way.
We as consumers have insatiable demand for capacity and throughput and the whole thing. Nakul, remember in the early days, and we had 1x, and before 3G, 4G, 5G. We thought, who would possibly use all this connectivity? And Darwinism kind of finds a way. For us, part of our job, and certainly part of my job, is finding the best startups in the world wherever they are. So they could be in a conference room here in San Diego. They could be the proverbial 7 kids in a garage in Saigon or Singapore or somewhere else. Our startups program, Inception, provides access to access. So let me explain, Faisal. So we have all the cloud relationships, and if somebody is involved in AWS Cloud or Microsoft Cloud, you can come and work with us at Inception, Nvidia, and you get more. It's better together. We're doing a whole bunch of things with Qualcomm, better together. The idea is that startup's journey is very difficult. It's a hero's journey. You have to be stubborn. You have to have almost irrational exuberance to believe that you can put your mark or plant your flag in the startup ecosystem. So whether it's access to our hardware, libraries, or access to our VC connections, we encourage startups to come work with us, and we help them with go-to-market as well. That challenge, we are especially empathetic because now we know all the startups are brand names from 10 years ago because many of us saw them, and I see Quinn in the audience and invested in some of them. But there are startups that are right now, right here forming all around the world that don't have the one name verb unicorn status yet. And our job is to find them and introduce them to capital and obviously democratize access to compute as well. So really excited about doing that, embracing that startup community.
Wonderful, thank you. So Philip, FPGA technology, right? So you in Enclustra is at the forefront of that. So how do you think that fit in the landscape of AI and IoT, and what advantages do you think they offer? Like, how do you see fit in the whole ecosystem as the AI and IoT advancements are ramping up exponentially?
I guess it covers a bit all the aspects that we're discussing just now, from connectivity, from data that has to be processed, from reliance to access to cloud or computing on the edge, and that whole aspect of actually accessing or harnessing the power of AI. And if I just take a bit of a personal example that kind of correlates these, I mean, my father, for example, right, he's 86 years old right now, and he doesn't want to go to an elderly home. And he has all what is currently available. So some sort of a smartwatch that measures his pulse, and he has that alarm button that he can call somebody if something is happening, right? That's what I have at home, and what I have in my customer space is that little startup that is making a first aid responder right now, that is just constantly monitoring the environment of somebody at home that doesn't want to go to an elderly home, right? And it does that in terms of, okay, measuring vital signs, assessing the way the person is behaving, and deducting out of that whether or not he actually lied down or whether he fell down. And it's that sort of thing that is what I do see being the biggest, or one of the big benefits that we're going to have forward, that you get that peace of mind of making sure that the technology that we make available and the availability of AI is actually coming to a benefit, and gives you, as I said, that peace of mind that, yeah, okay, even though he wants to live alone, he's being taken care of by that little thing that is just always there and alarms you when you have to be alarmed. And that's where I do think the future is going to go there. And the confluence between the power that you see more and more in the hardware, and for example, with the FPGAs that are always getting more and more powerful, and the accessibility of these AI models, that's what's driving the next step in our area.
Wonderful, yeah. And then Samir, I think MIPS known for processor architecture. How do you see that evolving or adapting to for the needs of AI, IoT, especially from the MIPS vantage point? Like, how do you see what?
Yeah, I mean, so again, it's a pretty broadly used processor architecture over the years, right? But in its latest incarnation, we at MIPS are fascinated by motion. I'll ask a question, right? There are not many of us who use an automatic lawnmower today. right? Companies have tried building that, but it's not very prevalent. And to me, one of the reasons it's not prevalent is because it doesn't work. So if you think about it, it's a very interesting problem. None of our lawns are completely flat. So if you're trying to go run an automatic lawnmower, it has to dynamically calculate the height at which it needs to cut the grass so that it comes out looking like we would do. When we're doing it, we do it by hand, very subconsciously. That's a perfect AI problem, which doesn't get solved today because the compute engines aren't focused on that problem. It's a lot of vector processing, a lot of linear equations, whatever, right? So at MIPS, we're completely fascinated by that. I mean, we sell into automotive, not as much as ARM does, but we are very focused on ADAS, and we go there, a lot of sensor fusion. But we're trying to take that, merge that with a lot of AI and motion together, and see whether we can create things which will make smoother robots, better machines, as whatever's happening in the AI factory gets deployed at the edge. And to me, if we can do that for the size of our company, I think we would have left a little bit of an imprint on the globe. And that's what we're focused on.
So I have now a little contentious question, right? So demand for semiconductor is growing. So how do you see the hardware providers, the chip manufacturers, software developers, and integrators? How can they be more collaborative to accelerate innovation? Do you think there's a possibility that there can be more cohesion and collaboration to drive innovation forward, or the way things are going, I think it's fine. So just a perspective I wanted to get.
I think it's a provocative question. I think it's a pretty important question, actually. I think, frankly, it comes a lot to cultures and what you've grown up with in terms of what you're comfortable with, what you had to do to ship a product. And as the world changes, as your dependencies change, like I'll give you our example. In the smartphone space, it's a very well-defined ecosystem. You know who your customers are, you know who you need to work with on hardware and software. And it's a machine. You are heads down executing to a schedule, and that becomes your personality, that becomes your culture. When we started to get into automotive in the early days, we knew that this would need to be a very different machine. And that's what it is today. We work with dozens of companies to go build a product. So we've created a culture that knows that we have dependencies. And I think it depends a lot upon, and I think Nvidia is a great example of how, the Nvidia team has transitioned from being really good at one ecosystem to being exceptional at a new ecosystem. And so I think it really has to do with the ingredients that you have that are core to you, that you are comfortable with, and then maximizing the change that is in front of you. How do you maximize how you can change yourself to take advantage of it? So it really comes down to kind of your core strengths. And building core strengths takes time, right? To me, that I think is probably the lesson that we are excellent at wireless. We are excellent at low power. We are excellent at moving at the speed of light to the next process technology. We haven't participated in the data center. It's not something that we have done before. So your core strength is very important to factor in when you think about where you're trying to go. Beyond that, it's the will to be able to go change.
And you're not going to go buy anybody anytime soon there, Nakul. I think of it differently, which is you have some of the smartest folks in the world from the best universities in the world working in, to say, the ecosystem, telecommunications, semiconductor, fab, process technology. Whether you do it with TSMC, you do it in-house, there is this crazy demand for the wafers to be created for the products that go in every device that we hold all day long. That, to me, I think is going to be studied in business schools decades from now. Not just who partnered the best or who purchased the most competitors, but how did we as a collective ecosystem, I'm talking about globally, I'm not talking about any jingoism between the US versus somebody else. How do we prepare this world where we're all a little bit safer with our mothers and fathers, our children are a little bit safer, and every access for the devices that we need is met at a blink of an eye or a snap of a finger. That is a wonderful quadratic equation problem to have for the free world. and we got the best people in the world attacking it all day, every day.
I'll just add my perspective, given we are a RISC-V architecture, so it's an open source, right? See, I think hardware developers don't have the luxury which software developers have, where there's a lot of open source available, where they can go focus on the few things they want to differentiate on. I think if we've got to bring the barrier of innovation lower, whether it's a startup ecosystem or this, I think open source acceptance on the hardware side has to be true.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm a small company on RISC-V, and there's a new competitor every day. And there are days when I'm like kicking myself saying we should have stuck to our proprietary architecture. And then by the afternoon, I've recovered from that initial emotion. I'm like, no, you know what? This is actually helping us because it keeps us focused on what we need to do. And there is plenty room to go differentiate and put value out while making sure that the barrier of acceptance is lower. So I think, to me, I am a strong proponent, having lived this for almost 2 years now, that the more acceptance on open source we have on the hardware, the closer this starts becoming like software development. And then failing isn't going to be the end of the world. I think failing is going to be part of the culture because you're going to fail many times before you succeed and you get used to it. And then that's what's going to get more startups into it and more innovation. That's my view.
So I'll ask you to put on future glasses and vision the future. And when you guys have a panel at TechCon 2035, we're sitting here. I'm going to record it right now what you say, and then we're going to check how accurate it is. So each of you tell me, from a semiconductor perspective, the key innovations that you want, you can forecast for the next decade in IoT, autonomy, and AI. So, where do you see the world is going? And, to 2035, when you're sitting here, hopefully, what will be the world be like? So maybe anybody can go. It's for all four of you. Maybe I'll put you on the spot. Yeah, you can go first.
I think it's going to be robotics.
Robotics?
Agentic,
Humanoid and
agentic AI, both physical and virtual AI, in terms of I will have multiple agentic AI partners, bots working for me. My family is at the hotel. I know what they're doing and when they're traveling. I have a trip coming up. Do I want to record this for posterity and squeeze out the best the intelligence that I learned from my peers here? All of those things happen, as well as my own, HIPAA compliant medical record on me. God forbid anything happens. I think those are going to be running. Everybody's going to have multiple, potentially dozens of bots protecting and looking over them. And then we're going to have some physical non-sci-fi movie where the bot goes crazy and does something to the partner, but helpers along the way for a workforce that is vastly understaffed. So we're in this generation where our parents are getting much older. Some of our kids are not taking the traditional jobs. There's tens of millions of jobs available that are remedial, that are redundant, that you don't need a degree from San Diego State or anywhere else to have. I think it's going to be pervasive as the devices that we have, like a smartphone right now.
Great. So I've recorded it. So 2035. So maybe Philip.
I might be a bot right now. You don't know that.
Yeah.
I do think robotics is going to play a big role there. And when we look at what we just discussed, right, there are certain problems in this world that still have to be solved. Food scarcity, for example, or environmental health and safety, right? So how do you make efficient fertilizing of crops in order to make sure that you reduce the amount of fertilizer being used while maximizing the output that you're going to get there. Robotic and AI is going to be a going to play a tremendous impact on making that happen, right? And if you then look into the hardware that is required there, yes, the companies that are building these things right now, right, they need to be enabled that they have a chance to get it right rather early on. Those are small companies. Those are wouldn't say startups, but companies that have experience in this field but cannot afford to go through multiple loops of trial and error, right? Once they come up with a product that they want to bring to the market, the expectation is going to be there. The expectation of the marketplace is going to be there. The farmers, they want to, they have to deal with a return investment as well. So if they make that investment in a new harvester, in a new fertilizer machine, it has to actually deliver, it has to work, right? And we have to make sure that the availability of all of these new technologies is being done in such a way that everybody that wants to venture into that actually has a fighting chance to adopt this technology quickly, to adapt to the way they have to use it, to the ease of use of it, and make sure that they bring these products to the marketplace quickly, because otherwise somebody else is going to wake up next day and eat their cake.
So I mean,
I'm recording everything, so it's all recorded.
So I fully subscribe to both Howard and Philip's views, but I'll give it. What would success look like 10 years from now? So if you were looking at any of these low Earth orbit photographs which show the world, right? A part of the world has a lot of light, and a part of the world is dark. Honestly, if we do our job correctly, 10 years from now, I think less of the world will be as dark as it is today. I think we've got to go democratize technology access. And as productivity improves thanks to robotics, thanks to AI and all of this, I think that if 10 years from now there's more light across, we should be happy with that.
Very good. Nakul, I think anything you want to add?
Yeah, maybe I'll maybe talk about three things in the context of just infrastructure that changes, and then one concern that I think all of this is going to bring up. I think the first is, the internet has been around now at scale for about 20 years. The internet as we know it will change because the level of technology that is available today, the internet is just going to, with reasoning models becoming, are just starting, but reasoning models are going to become very intelligent very quickly. The internet is going to become a set of agents and companies, businesses, conglomerates will talk to each other in a very different way than they are today. So that I think is one. I think the second piece, and I think Howard touched upon this, is as you start to organize data intelligently, because today data is not organized intelligently. It speaks to Samir's point about why are certain parts of the world not able to catch up. It's because it is so difficult to catch up if you try to catch up in the conventional way. And healthcare is probably the one area that is the most untapped in terms of how much can be solved if you apply technology, but you need data to be organized in a much more curated, much more systematic fashion to then be able to actually apply the capabilities of AI. I think the third is just physical AI, where contextual awareness, something that is happening in the physical world and the digital world, being able to react to that physicality, that changing. And I think robotics is talked about, but I feel like cities, I feel like, wherever we are seeing a lot of incidents that we should be able to avoid and we are not able to, I think there is tremendous amount of capability there. What I worry about is, what do the young people that are going into college now, and I shouldn't say worry. I think there is a new level of innovation that is to come. There is a transition period over the next 10 years in terms of what are the jobs of the future. And I think the jobs of the future are going to have a bit of a transition as technology just permeates so broadly. So if you're in the tech space focused on AI, you have a pretty good future over the next 10 years in terms of being right at the tip of the spear.
So amazing future that you have for painting a picture. So hopefully we're gonna meet again in a few years and see where we are compared to where we are today. But let's talk about the challenges, right? So semiconductor industry, what challenges do you see, whether it's geopolitical, supply chain, technology limitations that we have to still overcome? If you remember 3 years ago, what happened? Like I was a CTO of a company and I was begging for a 60-cent op-amp because my product will not ship, and this horrible period that we went through. So I'm saying, like, if you look now, like, what challenges to paint that future that you're saying? What are the challenges that we have to overcome? Do we still have limitations in supply chain? Do we still have limitations in manufacturing and in the inherent technology to scale more?
I think the challenges are more when you have to change the physical elements of the infrastructure that you have to be able to touch. The challenges are less when you have traditionally been a digital company, a software company, and you are just moving to a different architecture. That's why I feel like the internet is going to change very quickly. It is because agentic AI is essentially rewiring the internet differently. Uh, the challenges are going to be around uh, how long does it take for the investment that you have to make to be able to pay off, right? And a lot of, I mean, if you think about product cycle change, consumer product adoption is the fastest, and then everything else slows down from there. How are you able to go invest? In our world, we look at new competitors who don't have legacy, who start from a blank sheet of paper, as being at an inherent advantage because there is nothing to protect. So I feel like challenges will be for traditional companies and incumbencies that have a lot more baggage than somebody, quote unquote, China, and how quickly China can move. So those are the types of challenges that will exist. But I think there is also a tremendous amount of opportunity in terms of how quickly you move.
Perspective, I agree fully with Nakul. I think legacy is our biggest challenge. See, we've all grown up in a supply chain ecosystem, value chain, where we have gotten dependent on certain entities which are point failures for our technology. Um, that has gotten our engineering teams to a point where they think in that language. It's become currency. So when we think of compute, we think in those units. That is scary in the post AI world. So breaking away from that legacy, you can't change your engineering team overnight, but breaking away from that legacy to out innovate faster moving economies, faster moving entities, it's a fascinating challenge, but it is a genuine challenge for with legacy. So fully agree with you.
Anything you want to add?
I do think one thing that we have to keep in mind is that the experiences that we have made 3 years ago with that supply chain crisis, where I was sweating blood and tears as well, is that the lessons learned out of that have not been applied yet, right? We had, I'd say we had 12 months after this whole thing started, where everybody said, oh yes, we're going to change, oh yes, we are going to we're going to apply lessons learned. If I look at this right now, it didn't really happen, didn't really materialize. And I would say that is a constant, that will be a constant, that we're going to go into that cycle again. It's going to happen again, and we just have to be ready for it. But making sure that we can quickly react to that is going to be what drives success going forward. Because at the end of the day, yes, all these models, all these new ideas, they have to run on something, right? This has to be built. It doesn't help if you just have the good idea and the software for a smartwatch or for any device like that. You have to actually build that device, and it has to be available as and when the need for it is going to be here. And I do think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges going forward.
So all of you represent large companies, and I think in software there can be 3 guys with a laptop in a room with no windows and can build something amazing. So if there are semiconductor entrepreneurs and startups, what one advice would you give? Where they should focus on, what problem they should solve, or what they should be doing to make a difference or become successful?
Couple things. They should access all of the startup programs that exist around the world. This is not just an infomercial for our inception at Nvidia. I already gave that commercial pitch. Every mega tech company that is in this space has a group, has a business unit, has a division, has a handful of senior executives that are trying to embrace and enable the next 2 kids in a garage, 7 kids in a garage, or a couple kids that just dropped out of San Diego State. Please don't try to reinvent the wheel or write code that already exists and is running around the world. That would be the first thing. The next thing is...
Please take a note. There are a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience. So.
Yeah. As the better your product market fit of your product becomes, the more your MVP, your minimally viable product, becomes, don't worry, the investors will find you. VCs exist. They hear a lot of pitches. They are pitched to, but the best ones in the world also are out there scouring the earth for the next best companies. Tap into the resources that are available to you as opposed to trying to do it all by yourself from, what'd you say, 3 guys or 3 gals in the part of the library over here at San Diego State.
Think modular. I do think if you build up your solution on a modular basis, it allows you to react quickly. So all of a sudden there is going to be a new technology available, a new chip is going to be available, a faster, a bigger one, and all of a sudden, if you have the opportunity to put that into your solution, it opens a whole new world of what you can actually innovate into it. And I do think that's going to be one of the key differentiators, especially looking at bringing a product on the market, a hardware product on the market. Because the availability of new components is going to accelerate, it's going to get faster and faster, the product life cycles will get shorter, and you have to be able to have the latest and greatest within your initial offering that you bring to the marketplace. So doing your design on a modular basis, partnering with people with companies that are on that track as well, is going to be a key factor for success.
Modular, okay.
Faisal, are you very kind that you put us on the same stage as Nvidia and Qualcomm and then called MIPS a large company? But beyond that, see, I think I'll say from our experience, focus. We don't have to solve every problem on the planet.
Yeah.
We have budgets which allow us to solve 1, maybe 2 real problems. Commit yourself to it and go all the way in and aspire to be the best at that. If that works, then you're good. Otherwise, fail and start again. But don't kind of dilute your focus.
Wonderful. And then Nakul?
I would say, if you have a clean sheet of paper, given that there is so much of change that is in front of you, it's very important for hardware companies to think about the applicability of what they are building in a very broad lens. What is the application of what you're building? I think that's one. I think the other, and this is, a lesson that I think about every day, software first thinking. It is very important to make sure that you have a way for what you are working on to be accessible. And I think Howard used the term access. The accessibility of what you are doing in the context of you not knowing what people might do with your product, but make sure that you design it in a way that isn't something that you regret later. I think that to me is, because frankly, nobody knows here what will be needed, but if you build a really good hardware product, connect into an ecosystem that can just embrace it.
Wonderful. So let me summarize. Software first thinking, focus, modular, and leverage the tools available from larger companies. And that should be the advice for the entrepreneurs. With that said, I think we are out of time. I'd like to thank all the 4 esteemed guests, and then please give a hand of applause.
Thank you.